My name is Sean Law. I'm a person on an unending voyage of discovery. Every so often, I sit down with educators and professionals to try to learn a little bit more. This week, I'm sitting down with high school educator Mr. Marusevich as we discuss sex and violence in pop culture, and also rap music. Okay, today we're discussing Shakespeare, and I also was sitting and ruminating on the idea and hip-hop or rap. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in class or in school or in life just don't understand why do we still study Shakespeare as opposed to anything else in the English language.
I think it's just like what rap did for music. You know, it was a shot in the arm for what people were watching or reading at the time. I mean...
Yeah, so what makes Shakespeare special? Like, why was it a shot in the arm?
Because I think he invented a lot of new phrases.
Okay.
I think he took the language, kind of, put it in a way that it was new, it was refreshing. He was using something familiar.
Yeah.
And something familiar to a lot of people. I mean, not just the elite, but people, the groundlings.
So he wasn't talking to just the educated.
I think he was specifically not talking to the educated.
Okay, so he was pandering more towards the common folk. Yep. As hip-hop tends to be talking to more of a youth.
Right. In the beginning, at least.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it trickles up.
It gets a little more highbrow, but it's as opposed to where popular culture used to be in the 60s, 70s, jam bands that used to specifically be focused on college kids.
Right.
Hip-hop turned and was like, no, we're going to focus at...
Well, look at it this way. In Shakespeare's day, one, there weren't any female, actresses.
Yeah, actors or actresses.
Two, really up until about... 1900, to be in the theater, to be associated with the theater, especially being an actor, was like shame onto your family.
Let us do the procession of shame now.
Shame.
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 Bad
Shame.
vampire.
Shame. Augusta?
It was something that,
okay.
You didn't want your friends to know that your son or daughter was an actor or an actress. And think about, the beginnings of hip-hop and rap where it's looked at as the lowest common denominator at the time. And now, 25 years later, 30 years later,
everybody
it becomes something that even, like, my parents are, if not, versed in, they're familiar with.
Hey! Hello, gentlemen. Y'all like Drake? Drake? Hell yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Shakespeare did. I think he just took a stagnating language, made it a little bit more interesting, kind of turned a few phrases. I mean, we see this in songs. Specifically, I think of like the last person to do that would have been Eminem.
Okay.
Lyrically, musically, and that's what Shakespeare had.
Okay.
There were a lot of beautiful, like, melodic lines that almost sound as if they could be sung.
Okay. Why do we still find Shakespeare so dense and difficult to understand if he turned so many phrases and talked to the lowest common the common folk, not the lowest common denominator,
right.
but
yeah.
And who are the groundlings? You mentioned that before.
Well, the groundlings would have been, if we can go back to the Globe Theater, which was this circle, this wooden circle.
That was his theater?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I think in, I don't remember which play, he refers to it as the wooden O.
Okay.
Or something to that effect. But basically, you had everyone that had, some money in seats along the walls of this, circle.
Okay.
And then you had kind of what would be general admission,
okay.
Nowadays when you go to a concert. Except, now we kind of like doing that. Yeah. And the groundlings, didn't have a lot of money. So they would get these seats, or I would not even seats. They would just
get
sit and stand, right, among all of these other people. So there was really no order to it.
Okay.
You didn't have a
specific... Was there like mosh pits and stuff?
I'm sure it probably got crazy. I mean, if you were not doing a good job on the stage, then you could have expected to get, the 17th century version of Rotten Tomatoes, thrown at you.
Okay.
As opposed to, now where it's a website. So I think that's probably where we got it, too.
Yeah, I believe there's, when I was doing research, there was, so groundlings would actively, if you were doing poorly, pelt you with rotten food. Mm-hmm. And then, from the ground theater is actually where you get the phrase, break a leg.
Right.
Break a leg doesn't refer to, the inverse of good luck, to not jinx someone. It refers to make it to the end of the show to take a bow.
Nice.
Because they might not have made it to the end of the show because the groundlings would get so rowdy. Mm-hmm. They would basically... It was like a WWE audience where they would just get really behind characters, and if they didn't like what was happening, they would just freak out.
Totally.
And, try to attack people.
I mean, I'm sure it got rowdy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I mean, that is really the audience that I think he was trying to pander.
Okay, so, and then there's this equivalency where in hip-hop and rap, it's usually talking to not necessarily super highbrow educated individuals, but it's more real stories that the common man can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know what, to go back on your point, before you had said, why do we still not teach Shakespeare, or why do people find it difficult or dense?
Yeah.
Obviously I have a little experience, I'm in no ways... as versed as I'd like to be in Shakespearean plays, but I've always looked at it this way. I mean, it was just as hard for me in 9th or 10th grade to get through Romeo and Juliet. You got the general idea that it was this...
He likes her, she likes him.
Yeah, it's not meant to be, but they try to make it work, and then of course it ends horribly. And that's a story that people would have known already through, Pyramus and Thisbe.
Yeah.
But the idea here is that it isn't actually dense. It's like anything, calculus or geometry or history. It's always going to be somewhat dense when you approach it.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of people, because they perceive that the language is so far removed from our own
life.
Right, or our own use of the English language.
Yeah.
And people, call it Old English, and it's you don't want to read Old English. It's not even close to Middle English.
Yeah,
either.
He's actually separate from all other English. He's in and of himself.
Well, we would still categorize him as modern English.
Yeah.
And, named after the Queen, Elizabethan era English. And that's another thing. He was changing the language so quickly that really after he's gone, people start to kind of do that as well.
Yeah.
So the language has been evolving, I think, at a breakneck speed, much
compared
quicker.
to other languages.
Right, because when you look at the time between Old English and Middle English, and then Middle English and what we consider modern English, it's so much smaller in between.
Because, again, when I was doing research, it's... We cannot read anything that would be considered Old English. The first English stories of... Like Beowulf. We can't read in its original form.
I wouldn't...
But...
It looks like dwarven runes from, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. But if you go to other countries, they can still read their early texts. In Iceland, they can still read the early sagas in their native tongue.
Right.
They can still actually... So I'm wondering if... Well, I always find it funny when people are like, oh, you have to use proper English and grammar and all these things matter. And it's like, this is the last language where rules matter. It's so...
arbitrary.
Arbitrary and founded in colloquialisms and all that other stuff where when people are like, hard rules, I'm like, your hard rule came up 20 years ago from friggin' Harvard or Oxford or something. It's not an ancient necessity.
Right.
It's something new that was founded relatively recently in the scale of human history.
Yeah. And the rules, the rules have changed since I was in high school.
Exactly.
Things that are acceptable are usually things that are wrong by more than, the 50% of the population. Irregardless will probably be added to the dictionary in 100 years.
That one hurts.
Idiocracy was a pretty prophetic movie, I think, when you look at
this is being recorded,
the stupidity of certain aspects of what people say. If you really thought about, I could care less. It's I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
But when you think about, if you just stopped and thought, Could you care less?
Yeah, there's so many little phrases that you understand the meaning, but it's not properly phrased, and so Shakespeare is sort of the genesis of this idea of words being more than just the direct meaning, but the emotional impact and the inferred impact. All right, so let's go to. So we're gonna play a game now, because I want to go over. Well, basically, I think the other thing we need to talk about is Shakespeare, and he's a dirty old man.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like also similar.
There are so many parts that I cannot go over in class, or I can allude to them.
Well, funny story. We're gonna go over those right now.
Yay!
We're gonna play a little game called Who's Looter? The rap artist or Shakespeare?
All right.
So
bring it on.
I'm going to give you 2 quotes, one from Shakespeare, one from a rap artist.
Do I have to guess which one is the Shakespeare?
No.
Okay.
That I feel like that will be evident.
All right.
But what you need to do is break down in detail what these individuals are discussing. And then please tell me who is Looter.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
I guess, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to be looking down because I can't rattle Shakespeare off the top of my head. Or rap lyrics for the most part. I can't spit. All right. So.
Nor would we want to hear.
No, it would be terrible. Yes. So first, we're going to start with Shakespeare. My soul doth tell my body that he may triumph in love. Flesh stays no further reason, but rising at thy name doth point out as the triumphant prize from Sonnet 151. And then there is Nicki Minaj from Anaconda. This dude named Michael used to ride motorcycles. Bigger than a tower. I ain't talking about Eiffels. So please, if you could, compare and contrast. Like you're writing an essay for, the SATs
right.
or like an in-class essay.
Well, forgive my redness.
That's fair enough.
The subject matter. In a nutshell, I think these...
So what's Shakespeare talking about?
I think he's talking about his Little Shakespeare.
Okay.
Yeah.
What specifically about his Little Shakespeare?
That it is at attention.
Okay.
And...
at thy name.
Right. And there were a lot of specific words in there.
Yeah.
Point. If I look...
Flesh.
Yeah. I think these would have been terms that the groundlings would have...
Been like, ooh.
Yeah, right.
All right. And then
Nicki Minaj, I think, is just echoing the size of...
Well, Nicki Minaj perturbs me in that
everything.
If she's not talking about Eiffels as in physical structures,
right.
What the hell else towers is she referring to? Because I know no other structure, like, definition of towers other than a physical structure.
Well, I think you'd need another 2 people for that.
Okay.
If we're talking about...
Yeah, possibly.
Oh,
yeah.
Or we could just be talking about the verticality of the tower.
Yeah, or something like that, or just immensity. Anyway, so who is Looter?
I'll say Nicki Minaj.
Unfortunately, you're wrong. So here's the thing. Shakespeare's an old Englishman, and no one wants to hear him talking about it.
That's true, yeah.
Just straight fact. So no, you're wrong. I'm sorry. Moving on. Graze on my lips, and if those hills be dry, stray lower, where the pleasant fountains lie, from Venus and Adonis. And then we are going to go to Snoop Dogg from Gin and Juice.
Great.
Dre got some from the city of Compton to serve me, not with a cherry on top, 'cause when I'm rising up off the cot. Don't get upset, girl, that's just how it goes. I don't love you, hoes, I'm out the dough. So please, what is...
Well, your pronunciation was just...
Thank
wonderful.
you. I try. So what's Shakespeare talking about?
I think very similar to the last excerpt. We're talking now about the lower extremities for the female.
Oh, okay. And Snoop Dogg.
If we, want to be critical about it.
Yes. Now, what is Snoop Dogg going on about here?
It sounds like Snoop Dogg is in the act of fornication, perhaps.
Yes.
And wrapping it up.
Okay.
And by that I mean...
He's out the door.
Done, yeah. Hopefully he is wrapping it up.
Oh, yeah, that would... he does mention that he has condoms in the song. Remember, kids, use protection.
Yeah.
So that being said, who is Luther?
I think Shakespeare this time.
Shakespeare? You might be right, other than there's multiple people in Snoop Dogg, so it's possibly like an orgy or something a little crazier,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you're wrong. You're really bad at this game. You should not be playing this. That being said, we're gonna move on to Shakespeare from Twelfth Night.
It's my favorite night.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, so we're back, and we're going to be going on about so Shakespeare, Twelfth Night.
Mm-hmm.
By my life, this be my lady's hand. These be her very C's, her U's, and her T's. Thus she makes her great P's. It is in contempt of question her hand. And then we're going to be going to Little John from Get Low. Till the sweat drips down my till all these crawl, till all skeet skeet goddamn, till all skeet skeet goddamn. So we'll start with Shakespeare. What is Shakespeare talking about?
I think similar to the last quote, we're talking about another erogenous zone for the ladies.
Oh God. Oh,
I
that
would
slurp
say
was a
drink
bad
water, but
Yeah.
that's what
Alright.
got you into it.
Yeah. That being said, yeah. So how do you know he is actually talking about?
I would imagine that the overt use of the
Letters.
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 Yeah.
Well, the last
I don't
letter.
think he's leaving too much.
Yeah. So the last letter I think is the most disturbing. P.
Right.
He's literally talking about urination. He's literally talking about she has large female bits, and she just goes to the bathroom a lot.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not totally up on that one.
Yeah.
And the second one, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even think I could
Please.
break that one down because my knowledge of what the repeated word is in there doesn't fit with what I think it is.
Alright, yeah. I think you all have the ability to Google these lyrics and figure out what they mean. Or you probably just know. It's gross. And that they don't censor it on the radio is awesome.
Can I go with both of them or the lewdest?
You must choose one.
You know what? I'm going to have to go with Shakespeare because I don't completely understand the second one.
I'm just going to tell you. The second one's a little grosser.
Could you tell me what the second one is? Oh, so it was what I thought.
Yeah, totally. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but sorry, you're wrong. You already made your guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you shouldn't be an English teacher. You don't get this. Like, how?
Well, I mean, I kind of got that one.
A little bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't. You're bad at your job. All right.
Yeah, I need to go back to school.
All right, so now we're going to do Shakespeare from Romeo and Juliet, a classic.
Mm-hmm.
I, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads, take in what sense thou wilt. And then we're going to go to the flip side with Lil' Kim from Big Mama Thing.
She's really grown.
Yeah, she's become
matured.
Yeah. But that being said, I used to be scared of the. Now I throw my lips to that. Handle it like a real. Heather Hunter, Janet Jack me. Take it in the butt. Don't you like the way I roll? And play with my bushy. Tell me what's on your mind when your tongue's in the. So, first off, what's Shakespeare saying here?
I believe he's alluding to taking a girl's virginity.
And what else?
Violently.
Yeah, or murder. So either cutting her head off.
Right, or cutting the maiden head.
Yeah. Cutting head off or taking her virginity. So that's rape or murder, basically. And then, well, I don't think we actually have to go into.
I'm glad you say that. I think it's.
I
there are a lot of different the images in Little Kim. She's
vivid imagery, but wordplay doesn't seem to be a strength.
She's not very subtle.
No, I'm a little disappointed. Like, I was surprised Snoop Dogg wasn't surprisingly subtle and clever with many of his with his wordplay. Yeah. So who is Looter?
I want to say Little Kim.
Unfortunately, one is rape and murder, which is
right.
Yeah, that's really bad. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in your morals. It frightens me.
I am.
You should.
I think.
Yeah, I don't trust you around children now.
Inward.
Okay, you should look in. I have a card for a therapist. I'm gonna ask you to see after this.
All right.
Cool. So here's
is
the
that
other
different
thing.
from my court ordered?
Yeah, it's well, I think it's the same. I think we see the same guy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That being said, so Shakespeare is also noted for being incredibly violent. Mm-hmm. So specifically, a lot of the acts that happen in his plays, he has a body count that rivals like Game of Thrones in some cases. In like a singular episode, everyone's like, "Oh, the characters die so often." So let's just go over like, in what can be a 3 to 4 hour play. So compare this to, like 4 episodes of Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Titus Andronicus, 15 characters dead over 5 acts. Titus Andronicus. I love that I wrote that down correctly. Titus Andronicus, 15 characters dead over 5 acts. That's
not to be confused with Titus Andromedon
from,
I think, Breaking Kimmy Schmidt or something. Or Unbreakable.
Unbreakable,
whatever,
yeah.
Back to Titus.
But back to death. That'll be another episode. We'll just do a breakdown of the season 1. Because that show's so good. Right, so 5 acts, about 3 to 4 hour play. King Lear, 10 characters dead with even more mutilation. Mm-hmm. Coriolanus,
yeah.
Coriolanus, I don't have a number on that. Do you have that?
I don't, but I believe it is even more than Titus Andronicus.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. It definitely fits.
It's up there.
Yeah.
Hamlet,
it's not a tame play.
Hamlet 9, Macbeth 8. Mm-hmm. And these also don't count, I believe, battle scenes, those numbers.
Right. It also, if we look at Titus Andronicus, it's not just the deaths, it's, I think, the mutilation.
The mutilation, like, some things get really...
Lavinia getting her arms and leg... I think it was her arms and her tongue
cut out
because then she couldn't speak or point to the rapist.
Yeah, and then it's... so a lot of the imagery can be really vivid. Mm-hmm. And I think a good juxtaposition of that is another genre noted for its violence, heavy metal.
Okay.
So we're going to play another game. Who is more violent?
Hey. Maybe I'll do better on this
Shakespeare or the heavy metal band?
Okay.
So we're going to start with Shakespeare from Titus Andronicus. They sufferest thou thy sons unburied, yet to hover on the dreadful shore of Styx. Make way to lay them by their brethren. There greet in silence as the dead are wont, and sleep in peace, slain in your country's wars. O sacred receptacle of my joys, sweet cell of virtue and nobility, how many sons hast thou of mine in store, that thou wilt never render to me more? And then we have from Iron Maiden, from Die With Your Boots On. 13, the beast is rising, the Frenchman did surmise. Through earthquakes and starvation, the warlord will arise. Terror, death, destruction, pour from the eastern sands. But the truth of all predictions is always in your hands. If you're gonna die, you're gonna die. If you're gonna die, die with your boots on. If you're gonna try, well, stick around. If you're gonna cry, just move along.
It's poetic.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that being said, who is more violent? Well, first off, what is Shakespeare kind of talking about?
I think they're coming from opposite directions. Shakespeare, at least if I remember Titus Andronicus, Titus's sons are murdered.
Yeah.
So he wants everyone to go to hell.
Yes. He's just saying all go to hell because he's going to have
basically,
no more sons.
Sticks,
Yeah.
Same thing. And I believe if we look at Iron Maiden, it's kind of, I feel like bursting out of hell, releasing demons and some sort of
being
army of evil.
Army, yes. Yeah. So who's more violent?
I mean, I'm going to go with Iron Maiden because I think it's worse to release people from hell than to put them there. But
Well,
I don't know anymore.
Here's the thing, yeah, damnation, damning others, as well as just the number of body count of Titus Andronicus, is so much worse. So I'm going to, unfortunately, Shakespeare is the right answer here. Right. So
you do know that the evil queen in Titus is served her own son in a pie. So that's kind of...
That's metal as
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which is also very Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You know, book-wise.
Yeah. the books, if you haven't read them...
they're better than the show. The show's great, but...
I would say Peter Baelish's character is better in the show. He's a little more subtle.
No doubt. But that's because it's an amalgam of a few other
characters.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the Catelyn chapters are physically painful in the books.
I agree. In fact...
You should just...
Spoiler alert, out. You know... You could edit that out, because I know I'm going to get a lot of emails about that.
Dude, those chapters... that's actually why I stopped reading the books.
Feast for Crows was as far as I got.
Yeah, those chapters hurt. Anyway.
Rough.
So, we're going to go back to Hamlet.
Okay.
To die to sleep, no more, and by sleep to stay, we end. The heartache and the thousand natural shocks, that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation, devoutly to be wished. And then we have Cannibal Corpse from Dead Human Collection.
This was my wedding song.
Excellent. It's a beautiful song. Mm-hmm. I cannot scream. My mouth is wired shut. I cannot see. My eyes are filled with blood. I must die while suffering. Pawn of torturous punishment. Losing all reason to live. Cherishing this painful death to become part of the Dead Human Collection. And you just imagine that, like Cookie Monster yelling at you, and you have the idea of what the vocals sound like. So what's Shakespeare saying in this?
The character wants to kill himself.
Okay,
and escape the pain of life. And I think in Cannibal Corpse's song, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Song.
No, the band name.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I played them at my wedding. I think it's the same thing.
Pretty much.
But enjoying the pain of dying.
I think they're just looking for the sweet release from the torture, and I think both are basically saying the same thing.
But I feel like in Hamlet, it's more of a, I don't want to feel this, and with Cannibal Corpse, it's like, I need this before I die.
Yeah. This is the last remnants, the pains are the last remnants of life I have. Mm-hmm. Who is more violent?
I don't know, I want to say Hamlet, because... it's about
Eyes
suicide.
Wired Shut's a little just more vivid and... so it's Cannibal Corpse,
right?
As well as the name of the band is Cannibal Corpse.
So you think that's a bad, that's a negative?
I think that just makes them win.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give it to them.
Yeah, I guess if you're named
Cannibal Corpse, it's just kind of given to you. Right. So starting at the top of Malcolm's speech. I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I think there would be hands uplifted in my right, and here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vicious than it had before. More suffer, and more sundry ways than ever, by him that shall succeed. So that's from Macbeth, Malcolm's speech.
So I'll be worse than Macbeth.
Yeah.
Right. Which he's joking.
Yes, and then from Slayer, Angel of Death. Pumped with fluid inside your brain, pressure in your skull begins pushing through your eyes. Burning flesh drips away. Test of heat burns your skin. Your mind starts to boil. Frigid cold cracks your limbs. How long can you last in this frozen water burial? Sewn together joining heads, just a matter of time, till you rip yourselves apart, millions laid out on their crowded tombs. Sickening ways to achieve the Holocaust. So, what are we talking about here in Shakespeare?
In the Malcolm speech?
In the Malcolm speech.
You want me to be your king, but I am going to be worse, if such a thing can happen. Than the guy that killed my
father. I'm just going to kill
everybody else.
Okay.
But I'll be worse than
yes. And then Angel of Death.
Well, the beginning of it sounds like he's having an aneurysm or some sort of...
It is actually specifically about Dr. Mengele.
Oh, okay.
The Angel of Death.
Ah.
Yes.
So I think it's pretty literal then.
Yes, it is incredibly literal. It just describes experiments
like
that he conducted.
Like William Stryker from the X-Men. Just kind of
if
putting
you want to
things
put
that
it
don't go
lightly,
together.
Yeah. Except real and did way
right,
worse stuff.
Right, of course, yeah.
Like if you bring comic books into it, like
I'm just trying to make it accessible.
Accessible.
Yeah.
It's hard to access.
Yeah.
Mengele, because he's kind of. If there was one person in history worse than Hitler or Genghis Khan, it would be Mengele.
Yeah. Because he did the real.
He's the one who did the most
experiments
damaging things of the Holocaust. He's the one who carried out
the mass gassings.
Mass gassings, but then really, really twisted experiments in human conditions. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with that one.
You're gonna go with that one? Yeah. Well, there's a whole country that's gonna die in the other one. So unfortunately, wrong again. Shakespeare's talking about.
But there's a whole world that's
a country though, Scotland.
But like World War II.
You might be right, but
I'm just saying.
At the time, the population that they were discussing, was a little. Either way, we'll call it.
I'm just trying to poke a hole in that theory.
Yeah, it's a pretty close 50-50.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So, that being said, we are now going to talk about Shakespeare again from Macbeth. This is a classic. I think it's one of the most poetic moments, in my opinion, or one of my favorite moments in Shakespeare. And so I'll just jump into it. Out damn spot out, I say. Nice. 1, 2, why then 'tis time do dot. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, a soldier and afeard. What need we fear, who knows it, when none can call our power to account? Yet who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him?
Yeah.
And then, so the other side is this band that I found called Watain, the song Life Dethroned. For those who don't know, the band Watain is a black metal band from Scandinavia who is known for throwing actual animal blood on the crowd and having just lots of fire and wearing scary things and not liking churches a whole bunch and stuff like that. They are very spooky, wonderful band.
I think the animal blood kind of conveys.
The animal blood might convey some of that. So, yes, now we're going to go into Watain. A pallid shape is floating, a lurid shroud of fading life. What once was a place so glimmering and bright has ignited itself and burnt out of light. I canonize thee, Lord of the Odious, for enlightening the path to perpetual might, for guiding me on this voyage, with nothing but scornful mirages in sight.
That's beautiful, actually.
I know, right? It's really like for a bunch of guys who are corpse and set things on fire.
I'm gonna pass that off as Shakespeare.
So what's Shakespeare talking about?
With Lady Macbeth, she's seeing things because her guilt's taken over because she's really the one that masterminded the whole thing and kind of pushed Macbeth to do it.
And one of my favorite parts is it's basically the setup for the Telltale Heart.
Yes,
of just guilt as well as the visualization and the outward experience of guilt. And depending on who's directing and how you see it, they do some really creative things with how they show the blood.
Very earlier in the play, right after and right before actually Macbeth murders Malcolm, they hear things. Very similar to the Telltale Heart.
And so he's not all that original, is he?
No, I mean, I believe it was Shakespeare.
Yeah, Shakespeare, it's actually...
He just took... It's like what Disney does.
Yeah.
He took stories that people know and are comfortable
and then actually
with,
wrote
and then kind of made them a little bit better.
Yeah, because Romeo and Juliet is based off of a written Italian text.
Yeah, and which is a Greek myth. Macbeth is loosely based on actual history.
Yeah.
But it was more of a play to suck up to King James.
Yeah, there's...
Who had just taken the throne.
And then you can compare that to, again, Game of Thrones, where it's
Right.
loosely based off of the War of the Roses and a couple of other different points in history. Genghis Khan, etc.
Yeah, he was
Genghis
a
Khan.
bad guy. Yeah.
He's a really interesting character.
But I want to hear what Watain was saying. So
They were just saying they're gonna kill you because they're awesome, as far as I'm aware. Do you have any interpretations of the text? Because this is not something that's been wildly deciphered.
It sounds like I thought they were going to kill somebody that, was a terrible person.
Okay.
I think they used the Lord of the Odious.
Lord of the Odious, yes.
You don't want that title.
No. And it's a pretty good title. That's something,
That could be
pretty
Dr. Mangala's title.
And fairly poetic. So who is more violent?
Oh. Well, I think because the actual murder took place, I'm going to say Shakespeare. I'm hoping Watain didn't.
Well, the other thing is, I'm just going to say these guys throw pig's blood on people.
Yeah.
So
and she's only seen.
Yeah, they
kind
of win.
I'll give you that one.
I feel like they win no matter what they say.
Yeah.
So you're really bad at this.
I am going to go back to.
You should hand in your teaching
actual texts. Because I don't know anything.
Try again. Yeah, you're not good. All right.
I think I just have a topical.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Marusevich, for stopping by. Leave my set.
Please. I thought that we were going to. Oh, so you
leave?
Want to, okay.
Leave now.
Okay.
Just get out of here. So that's science for this week. I'd like to thank Mr. Marusevich for coming on to the show. If you check the show notes below, you'll find many useful things, such as the documents we're referencing, an email for if you'd like to come on to the show, also another email for if you have any questions or concerns. I'd like to thank Ryan Chattel and Rec Films for helping us out, and Mr. Marusevich once again for coming on. If you'd like to support the show, please watch the annoying YouTube ads, or subscribe to our channel, or give us money on Patreon. Thank you once again for watching.